Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone in the franchise world. My name is Paul Segreto, and this is Franchise Today. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2017, and it is our second show of the new year. Joining me from his office in Hotlanta is my co-host, the ever-popular Stan Friedman. Stan, how are you today?
Doing great, Paul, and Hotlanta is hot again. Yeah, we're back to normal weather, ice gone, back in the 60s, back in the 70s. I'm enjoying it so much, I'm going to do what you're going to do as soon as this podcast is over. I'm going to beat a hasty retreat to Dallas, Texas.
Yep, Dallas, Texas, and Franchise Expo South. First time in Dallas. It's the first time a big expo has been back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I am super excited about it. It's at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center right in downtown Dallas, and we'll be there along with hundreds of franchisors tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. It's going to be a great event, Stan.
As a matter of fact, Paul, if I'm not mistaken, you, Teresa Huska, and Lee Plave have a 3.5-hour program that you're going to be facilitating on Web 2.0. That's Friday morning, is it not?
That's correct. We do Web 2.0. It will be on data and social media and franchising. It's specifically geared towards franchisors. There's so many different things every time we do this program, which we do 3 times a year at the major expos. Always a couple of weeks before, we've got some major data breaches to talk about, and it's really an exciting program. The funny thing, the ironic thing about it, the 4 out of the last 5 times we did it, while I was at the expo, I had a credit card compromised. Jennifer on my team had her credit card compromised once, and Lee has had his once, all while we were putting on this program. So it is ironic, but it is the way of the world, right?
Is there something to be said for those who are supposed to be teaching others how to prevent those kinds of problems from being inflicted with said pain at the same time? Come on, you can't make that up.
No, you can't make that up. It's really been crazy. But anyway, and I know you've got a session on Saturday. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, I'll be hosting again the A to Z's of buying a franchise, and we'll be joined by Rebecca Monet once again from Zoracle Profiles, and we'll be doing that class on Saturday, doing everything you need to know about what you don't know and need to be thinking about if you're here at the expo to consider a franchise opportunity. Last I checked in with Steve Gross from MFV just day before yesterday, we were up around 94 registered, so we're going to have a pretty good sized room. Yeah, we're excited and looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And Paul,
very good. And I really think the expo is going to be great this year. What else we got on the front of the house?
Just one more little tidbit that I wanted to do, a shameless bit of self-promotion, if you'll allow, if the audience will allow, and that is to invite everyone who's listening to us week after week might want to take a second dose, a second bite of the apple, as next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, right after we're done with our podcast, I will be hosting a webinar, the first in a series of webinars, and this one will be on revving up your franchise generation, lead generation, and lead management engine for 2017. I'll be joined on this, the first in the series, by some really, really great friends and professionals. And Steve Olson, who we've all known for years from Franchise Update, has got deep involvement now with 24/7 chat. We're going to be talking a lot about the importance of instant gratification and how chat can help accommodate that and accomplish that for franchisors in real time on their websites. We're also going to be joined by Tim Gilboy, General Manager of Franchise Help, who's going to bring his body of research over the last couple of years, which basically validates how important text messaging has become to franchise sales and lead gen and lead management. And Tim will be discussing that body of research and helping franchisors open their eyes to the possibilities that they can actually, without spending a penny more in their lead gen budgets, generate far greater ROI by including text messaging as an opportunity for their candidates to self-identify as interested in their concepts. And then rounding out the group is going to be a guy who I refer to as the Dean of Dashboards, Mr. Jimmy Weeks from Go-To Holdings. And Jimmy's going to really talk a lot about how your Google Analytics can be correlated to and give you greater business intel when you take the information available through his dashboards and correlate it to your CRM, in this case FRM, and actually the exponential value that you get by correlating your Google Analytics with your pipeline and CRM data is supreme. And Jimmy's going to be talking some about that. So we're going to spend an hour in total talking about how to rev up your engine for 2017. You can always spend more, but without spending a dime more, we're going to try to share some nuggets that I consider to be blinding flashes of the obvious to help you tune up the engine and be sure that you're getting the greatest bang for the buck and doing the most with your lead gen and lead management budgets. So that's next week. Those who are interested in signing up for it can just come to my website at frmsolutions.com/webinar, and you can register there.
That's great. I'll be sure to be on and we're in the self-promoting mode. I do want to remind everybody that Franchise Foundry has a booth at the Franchise Expo South. We'll be showcasing 4 emerging brands: American Robotics Academy, Little Beakers, Science Lab for Kids, Over the Top Cake Supplies, and Smart Drinks and Nutrition. So come see us. We'll be right across from the IFA booth, right at the front of the exhibit hall. You know, today, Stan, we have a very special guest, Chris Spears, co-founder and chief marketing technology officer of Arke, and I'm sure you're going to give us a little bit of insight into your relationship with Chris and Arke. But it was interesting as I was preparing for the show, I found a quote by what obviously is a very satisfied client of Arke and of Chris. And it says, Chris Spears is a creative and innovative business leader who's always in tune with the latest technology, information, and business strategy to help companies make quality business decisions and streamline business processes. It goes on to say Chris builds strong relationships with clients and business partners, and he believes in doing the right work the right way the first time. I love that. Chris, welcome to Franchise Today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Chris, great introduction, Paul. I mean, you covered an awful lot there on Chris. Great coverage of the bases. There is one base, though, that you kind of alluded to that we probably ought to fill the audience in on, because Arke Systems is a company that really puts a lot of focus toward the intersection of marketing and technology and how those two have become almost interchangeable parts. You can't have one without the other in today's world. But Arke also has, in addition to Fortune 50, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 clients, they've got a roster of some franchise business, but they also took a keen interest in franchising about 5 years ago, and that's kind of how Chris and I met. And so, for full disclosure, it's for those who don't know, Arke Systems is the parent company to FRM Solutions, and I'll let Chris tell you a little bit about how all that came to pass.
Thanks, Stan. Yeah, it's a long road to get to where Stan is today with FRM, but you know, if I rewind 8 years, we were doing several of the same type of projects across a variety of franchise organizations, and it was all related to how they were managing their franchisees. We also had, you know, some competition in town that was doing the same kind of work, and pulled all those pieces together to become the foundation that is FRM today. You know, I'll throw Stan under the bus here and say the first couple of times I reached out to him over LinkedIn, he didn't have any time for me, and I think it was an aggressive LinkedIn message from myself to one of his replies that got him and I together over coffee. And, that was about
Nice.
5 years ago today, and no regrets at all about getting together and building this business with Stan.
So, Chris, I know full well that some of the work that's done here at Arke, the kinds of budgets that corporate America dabbles with probably has a few more zeros sometimes to the left of the decimal point than those in the franchising world would necessarily be associating as available to them for the kinds of things Arke does. But that's not always the case, is it? Aren't there a great many things that anyone in franchising could and should be thinking about that could make a world of difference in how they approach marketing and technology?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think it's the size of the organization that drives the expenses they have associated with kind of their marketing and sales budgets, right? If you take advertising and set it aside and say there's a set of tools and systems and people and processes that you need to have to effectively market, it's usually tied to the complexity of the business. If you operate in 10 different countries, well, then, you're going to have a little bit more complexity because you got 10 different languages. If you operate in a highly regulated industry, you're going to end up with a little bit more complexity and a little bit more expense because you got to work through all those regulations. When I think about the franchising world and there's kind of, whether it's thought of this way, there's two marketing departments in the franchise world, right? There's the business development side of the world that's out attracting the franchisees, and you've got all the same. You've got print materials, in a restaurant. You've got a website associated with developing franchisees. You've got email campaigns. You've got portals. You've got all the same things on the customer side, right? You've got some kind of forward-facing website, advertising, email campaigns, loyalty messaging, and ultimately a system that keeps track of those individuals. I think in an ideal world, the thing to think about is those systems don't have to be different, right? If you know how to use a CRM platform for your franchise development, it should be the same CRM platform for keeping track of your consumers and the products they enjoy and the locations they visit and the people they've interacted with and the email campaigns or, loyalty campaigns that they might be a part of. I also think as you look across that spectrum, there is the free version of every single tool that a massive organization might implement for its complex language, security, governance requirements. In this day and age, we really look at there's a set of web platforms, right? And they kind of go from free to seven figures. There's a set of CRM systems that go from do it yourself to monthly subscription, and there are a set of email and demand platforms that again kind of go from a do it yourself mode, constant contact, up to large yearly subscriptions. And really picking those platforms and how they come together is, I think, a critical piece of making sure that you're not over-engineering.
So we're going to talk some more about all of those things, and I want you to talk at some point, too, about some of the business intelligence, things like the Azure platform with machine learning and Sitecore and other things that are out there today that are almost as amazing to consider in terms of machines actually starting to learn things that we as people don't. But let's peel the onion back before we get that far into the process, and let's talk about how all of this happened. Where did the idea for Arke even come from? How did you and Eric Stoll get this machine started to even become interested in subsidiary companies like an FRM? Something came way before that. So tell us about the origins of the company and the roots of how you got into this space, what prepared you to get into this space, and then let's talk forward from there.
Yeah, an accident, right? It's always an accident. Eric, so, my business partner and I started Arke while we were doing some consulting work at Turner Broadcasting Systems here in Atlanta. And it was really set up to be a platform for night and weekend consulting, never meant to be truly a going concern. We had great jobs we enjoyed. And, you fast forward 18 months and we had a lot of clients. We had this opportunity to say, well, I think we could actually do what we're doing night and weekends and make it something that's more full-time. And we took the leap. And that was, December of 2006 that we stepped out and kind of walked away from the nice corporate gigs and operated out of my condo building for about 6 months. So, I'd wake up to the door being knocked on and let a bunch of people in to sit down in my living room and start programming. And, I think what's interesting over that 12-year period now, 11.5-year period, is that we really did come from very technology-oriented roots and, capabilities. So we've always had an analytical mind to what we're doing and the results that we're trying to accomplish for an organization. If you look at kind of the way we're going to go to market in 2017, it's obviously drastically different. You can't swing a baseball bat, anything around without hitting some story about customer experience and just experience in general, the experience your customers have, your prospects have, your constituents have, your partners have. And I think we may have over-indexed on the experience side, and we also have to talk about the results that you expect that experience to create, right? You could have the most beautiful, intuitive, simple, easy-to-use experience for that franchisee development portal, but if it's not actually creating leads, it's not converting leads into new franchisees, what was the point? So if I had the soapbox I plan on getting on for the rest of the year is going to be about finding that balance between the right experience that you want to provide a consumer, a partner, and the result that you expect to have by the investment you're making in that experience.
Yeah, I love that. It's all about positively memorable experiences that has been, stuck on just customers in the past. I love that approach. I also love the fact that, your startup came about out of a living room in a condo. I thought you were going to go down the path of saying, my little lean-to garage, kind of like a
If only I had a garage, we'd be much bigger.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So knowing that, the Atlanta market has some sometimes ridiculous trends in weather, almost to extremes, although you guys have not had the type of rainfall that you need. So I'm assuming that Arke had nothing to do with grabbing 2 of each animal possible. So where does the word Arke, where does the name Arke come from?
Yeah, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, and even as technologists 11 years ago, we realized that what we were doing was associated with marketing and driving a business result. So you gotta spell this out in your head, but Arke is at the heart of marketing.
Cool. MARKETING.
Oh, wow. I like that. Even when you said that, I was sitting and I'm saying, I'm looking at it as an acronym and I'm saying, I don't get it, Chris. Oh, yeah, it's at the heart of marketing. I love that. A couple of letters tucked in there. That is awesome. That's awesome. I would have loved to have heard the conversations that led up to that and how many potential bourbons was sitting on the table while you were doing that. That's really great, and I love a name that's always unique. So many people try to form names of American this or national that or whatever. That's really nice and unique. So you get started. You go out there. What was the first step into franchising? How did you look at franchising? Was it by accident? Was it planned? And what has happened since then?
I've never really looked at other markets for kind of the saturation they have of franchisors, but I feel like Atlanta is very fortunate in the number of startup franchisors that we have, the number of holding company franchisors that we have, and over probably the first 4 or 5 years of doing business, we got engaged by a couple of those larger franchisor holding companies to help them build out, what eventually became FRM. So they were doing it at a scale across a variety of brands, across, thousands of locations. And they really, at the end of the day, I think we've built on top of the platform and extended it in amazing ways. But it really started off as we just need a better way to keep track of the data on all these franchisees. Who are the partners in that specific location? Where is that location? What are the documents associated with that location? So it really started with that core fundamental. We need a place to put all this data, and from there it expanded into the intranet and web portal that delivers training and reporting and the revenue side of things. And I think Stan has helped us move in to be on the front end of the lead development process so that we can work people through the entirety of the the funnel, right? So from cradle to grave is how I describe it now, that we can help a franchise or manage their franchisee relationships. And yeah, they were interesting projects, but they were completely custom built, right? Every single time it was kind of a new set of requirements, and what we saw over a couple of those was the opportunity to build something that was repeatable, scalable, and still allowed for the customization that a franchise or needed to manage their business.
So, Chris, let's talk a little bit about what you've seen in 10 or 11 years in terms of rapid change. I know that as somebody who spent a career in broadcast before I ever got into this world in franchising, I used to live in the world of Susie media buyer, if you will, who every few months was replaced by another media buyer at an agency, and they all did the same stuff. They always came in with their own litany of, well, we're going to do new websites, and we're going to do new apps, and we're going to just do all the things that are going to be done because I'm here now. But I think that world has changed and changed a lot and continues to morph, doesn't it? So technology and marketing, where has that intersection come down, and who's controlling what budgets, and how do those two get married anymore in today's world?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I don't think it's a role that ends up controlling that budget. I think it's the most capable executive, right? One of the executives in that C-suite kind of stands up and says, I get it, whether it's a CIO, a CMO, maybe the CEO keeps the reins on this and says, we're going to design a program that has an experience to it that covers when they're a prospect, when they're in the store being a customer, outside of them being, an immediate customer, and after they've told us they'll never be a customer again. I do think we've gone through this journey. My first website was, a wine.com back in 1999 when they were, raised way too much money to build the .com sites. But we've gone through this kind of Wild West, right? So you think about 99 and 2000, you just had to throw something out there. You didn't really know what it was going to do. You didn't expect anything of it. As we entered kind of the middle of that decade, 2005, I feel like we went through this kind of tech bonanza, right? There was a tool for everything. You needed something for social. You needed something for web. You needed something for email, for customer data. And as we exited, that decade and kind of the beginning of this one, we saw a lot of tactics, right? So a franchisee portal, this sales tactic, that inbound marketing tactic, that outbound marketing tactic. And this is kind of irrelevant whether it's, focused on new franchisees or it's focused on consumers. I'm hoping that we are exiting the age of tactics, right? Because I think in the tech bonanza, it was I show up and I'm going to drop in some new tech and that's going to be my magic bullet. In the era of tactics, I think you kind of show up and you go, I've got this tactic that you want me to deploy that's going to be the magic bullet to help solve our growth problems or our retention problems. I think we've got to move past that and say, what I believe about these technology systems is that they are probably all within they're playing this game of leapfrog, right? They're not transformatively different as you go from one content management system or one email platform. The tactics don't really change. It's just what you want the buzzword bingo that you want to call it that year. I think the gap is in what people understand those capabilities of the systems to be. You bought it and you're using 25% of it. You've got a strategy that doesn't actually engage and resonate with the audience that you're trying to bring in.
Or do you even have a strategy?
Right? But I'm with you. I hope that we're past these days of a new person comes into an organization and what that means is by default they throw out everything that was going on from a technology perspective, from a marketing perspective. And I think we need to focus more on optimization than starting all over every time somebody new comes in.
So talk for a minute, if you would, about what an emerging franchisor, somebody who is just kicking off, doesn't have any past mistakes to clean up, doesn't have any history yet, but coming out of the gate has probably far, far more on his wish list than he has budget to accommodate. In that realm, what can somebody do right away that isn't going to take multiple zeros to the left?
Yeah, I think we're all addicted to this idea that we've got to have a amazing, gigantic website. But at the end of the day, if I'm a brand, in my opinion, if I'm a brand new franchisor, Nobody's out there. I'm not going to come up in a Google search result. Nobody's going, what's this restaurant? You need a very simple page, right? I'm not saying you can get away with no website, but you need a very simplistic website. I think the most important asset that a new franchisor would have is their customer data, right? So regardless of the number of initial locations, making sure that they're capturing information and they're incentivizing, you when you walk in, to trade that email, that phone number, a social profile, whatever that touch point is going to be for them to put into their communications database, right? And having the tool that's going to track that and keep it separate, then you can start to add communication tools around that data set, right? You can add an email platform. You can add a loyalty platform. You can add a social platform. You can add a texting platform. But if you haven't started capturing the data from day one, you missed out on your most important digital asset.
Chris, you talk about, leaving the era of tactics, and I couldn't agree more, having spent a lot of time in and around social and digital technologies. And, of course, over the last, 5 to 10 years, we've seen an influx of new C titles, CIO, CTO, even CMO has become more and more popular. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't know who's actually handling what. And, of course, we've had, all the technology you're talking about, where we've got, social technology, we've got other digital technologies out there. How do you get past these CEOs and decision makers that are looking at these things as line items on their budget, as if they themselves, I spend, $200,000 on this, I expect X amount of dollars as a return on investment? How do you get them past that line item mentality?
Yeah, I think that comes down to leader, right? And, we've all kind of got that 80-20 rule of who do you want to take along with you and who do you leave behind because they're not willing to change their way of thinking. If they're still tied, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely believe in looking at the holistic picture and having a result and a return on that investment and being able to tie, average sales back to the dollars that we spend across a variety of programs. I think what you got to realize, though, is that you have an investment that is your foundational. I know I can do this. I know it will have this kind of return, and we can bank on it. But you've also got to have that risk budget, right? You've got to have money that you're going to spend on the new platform, on the new system, and you don't know what the result is going to be. But if you're not out there taking some of those risks, you're going to miss the wave that allows you to stay ahead of the competition, right? And again, I think that there are brands focused on, I want to be in the top handful, right? I want to be somewhere between 1 through 5, and we're going to be a little bit more risk oriented. And there's groups that say we're just going to be fast followers. We get it. And they can be a little bit more conservative, and they're always going to hang out just below that top tier of brands in the category.
Yeah, one of the things I think about is, a lot of times we hear, especially when you look at the social and some of those technologies, and people refer to them as disruptors. And of course, as if they're not using it correctly, it can be a disruptor. And I know a lot refer to a simplistic form of going back to, the telephone. When the telephone first was introduced into business, and the old Sam Druckers from Green Acres days and Petticoat Junction days standing at the counter, dealing with Mrs. Whoever, and the phone behind them rang. And he kind of was very disruptive at the time. It was an annoyance. It interrupted the flow of the conversation. And, of course, over time, businesses, of course, acclimated to it and utilized it as a very important, essential tool in operating their business. But when you're looking at, that cost, it was obviously much easier to tell a business owner, yeah, you're going to spend, $10, $20, $50, $100 a month on that, and it's not a very big percentage in the realm of overall expenses, but certainly technology can run rampant as far as costs. I remember I worked with an emerging brands franchisor that had spent 20 years in franchising and very technology oriented. And I was doing a little bit of technology consulting with him, and I said, okay, what is it that you want to use? Because he was very technology focused. And he sent me his wish list. And when I looked at it, I picked up the phone and I said, this is all great. It probably all could be used very effectively. However, unless your checkbook's got, some 6 and 7 O's in it, preceded by a number, you're not going to be able to afford this. You're going to have to prioritize. So how do these brands, prioritize? Because especially in a day and age where a lot of C-level executives, very smart executives, really don't have a clue. Oftentimes, you're introducing something brand new to them.
There is when we first got started, right, kind of the paradigm for consulting was very solution-based. We're going to go out and we're going to talk to that company or that organization, and we're going to really understand their business and their problem, and we're going to come back with a very tailored approach to what they're trying to accomplish, and it'll be completely custom. I think we've moved out of that era as well. I think we've got to operate in a mode that, for consumer marketing, for franchisee lead development, there's a playbook, right? And that playbook should be followed and executed. And yes, you'll go off script a little bit, but 80% of it should just be stamped out, regardless of your brand, regardless of your market share, and you're going to do really well by following that playbook. And as you start to experience the results you're expecting, that's when you start to get a little bit more risky. So to look at something and say, well, I don't know how much should be email versus social versus, direct, billboard, whatever. I don't think we need to have those debates as heavily as we used to, right? We should understand and say, this is your audience, and based on you're a millennial audience. We're gonna skew heavy into social and digital communications, right? You're an older audience. We're gonna skew into direct and billboard and those kind of communications. So I think it's a little bit less me picking your brain and trying to figure out what is going to work, and it's a little more you're hiring me because we're experts, and here's our prescriptive result for the outcome that you want.
When we come back from the half break, Chris, we're going to talk a little bit more about the futurist hat. So what do you see out on the horizon coming in the year 2017 and ahead? This is Franchise Today. I'm Stan Friedman along with Paul Segreto, and we're speaking today with Chris Spears, co-founder of Arke Systems, FRM partner, and marketing technologist extraordinaire. Franchise Today brought to you by the Franchise Foundry, where their team of professionals has been bringing emerging brands to market for more than 30 years with healthy, sustainable growth, the kind of growth that comes from experience. The Franchise Foundry provides their clients with coaching and consulting, a hybrid approach that fosters more effective solutions for their corporate teams and their franchisees. The Franchise Foundry is rich in practical hands-on experience and expertise in general business management, operational and change management, and is skilled and proficient in digital marketing, franchise recruitment, and development. The Foundry team can also assist you with creating roadmaps for potential mergers and acquisitions and guiding you through the courses necessary to navigate said same. Learn more about Paul Segreto and the Franchise Foundry along with their expanding list of clients at www.franchisefoundry.com. Franchise Today also brought to you by FRM Solutions, offering best-in-class CRM and document management software designed specifically for franchising. FRM offers the only CRM tool built exclusively for franchising that enables you to manage and store text messages as well as emails. FRM also enables simple collaborative communications between you and your prospective and existing franchisees. Make today the day you give FRM a look and start 2017 assured that all of your candidate and franchisee correspondence, including text messages sent and received by anyone on the team, can be permanently tracked and stored in candidate and franchisee records. FRM also provides state-of-the-art digital experiences for prospective franchisees, unlike anything ever seen before in passe virtual brochures. And one last thing, with FRM, your cloud-based software is upgraded annually at no additional cost, so you're always operating in the latest and greatest version of their software. Find more about FRM on the web at www.frmsolutions.com.
You know, Chris, you talked, I'll refer back again, getting out of an era of tactics. And I know in reading some of the information about Arke that you helped guide your team through the current revolution in marketing technologies. You've talked about, a broader digital transformation and, of course, leading up to customer experience. But you made a statement which I think is really key here. You said that the most valuable asset a business has is customer data. Would you care to elaborate on that?
Absolutely. I think the way that I would think about your customer data is it is revenue on demand, right? The more information that you have on a customer, the more likely you can convert them at your whim to revenue. Right? And I'll use a variety of different examples, right? So if it's been 6 weeks since my last haircut and the store around the corner from where I live is a little slow, and you pop me a text message or an email or a note on social, with some kind of discount that I can leverage in the next hour or 2 hours or that day, the odds of converting me are significantly higher than just waiting around for Chris to come wandering back in. If you are a restaurant that has an app and you can see that I'm driving around because your app has, always on location services and you're a little slow right then and you pop me a quick note for, time of day sensitive, right? If it's the in between a specific segment, you send me a note about a milkshake or picking up a drink. If it's the morning, it's coffee. If it's the evening, it's taking something home for the family, right? I mean, you can develop these profiles, and it's not like you need to do one-off marketing to Chris. You put him in a segment that says when these triggers are hit, we're slow, he's in the area, it's this time of day, this is the message that goes out, right? And it doesn't have to be an overwhelming process to design that. Get on a whiteboard, draw out what looks like an Excel file on your whiteboard, and come up with what you would put in each of those boxes based on the dimension you're looking at. Is it a time of day? Is it a persona? Is it an activity level? So when I think about customer data as the most valuable asset, it's because given the right message, you should be able to activate me at any time.
Chris, when we talk about taking some of that thinking into franchise development, I think that a lot of people over the years in our franchising world have collected years' worth of prospective franchisee data from people who have inquired about their brand, whether or not they ever acquired a franchise. Those franchisors are sitting on years and years of names and email addresses, and they kind of like recycle that every few years and see if they can go fishing in that pond again. But talk to me about some of the things that can be done with data like that, things like Watson and Sitecore and business intelligence and machine learning can do a lot more with that data than just hopefully catching another fish on the old hook.
Yep. And I would question for you, right, as a business development guy in the franchise space for a number of years, if you look back on your past, what percentage of new franchising opportunities and revenue came from people that had previously bought a franchise versus random Joe off the street that had filled out a form to buy a franchise?
I'd say that most of them in the older days came from on the street, first-timers, and then in more recent years, what franchisors have found is that multi-unit operators are their favorite people in the world. They already know what to expect from the guys that are on the team now. Now, can I get somebody from store 1 to 2, 3, and 4 and further develop the brand with multi-unit?
And, I mean, so in my mind, a multi-unit operator is a lot like a previous customer that you're leveraging as revenue on demand.
Absolutely.
The right financing offer, the right discount on a fee could convert them into store 2, right?
Absolutely.
Same thing in store 3 when you need that little spike. But to your question, right, you've got years and years of collecting Joe off the street that has expressed interest in your brand, and how do you continuously engage that individual? I think there's a huge propensity to go talk to them, not interested, not actually able to do it, but is interested. It selected a different platform, and you mark that as lost, and you never ever communicate with those individuals again. And I think that's kind of where the leakage is, right? You're just losing money by putting them into this I'm never going to talk to them again kind of category. I think there's a couple of things that I would do if I was sitting on a legacy database. One, I'd go out and look at some of the companies that do third-party data appends. So I can take my list, and it's got Stan Friedman and his address and his email and his phone number, and I ship it over to this company, and for $1, they'll give me 300 additional fields about Stan. What do we think Stan makes now? What kind of car does Stan drive? Where does he live? What is his propensity to buy? Blah, blah, blah. Does he own? It's just ridiculous the amount of information that they can return to me about Stan, right? So maybe I can look at that and go, Stan 5 years ago didn't have an income that supported this. I'm looking at this third-party data append, and Stan definitely has an income that supports it now. I think there's an opportunity to look at something like that to figure out, in my years of data, maybe somebody bubbled up and is now somebody that we should have a more active relationship with. But I also just think with the kind of the fundamental nature of email and the ability to do what I would refer to as nurturing, I mean, you should have a bi-monthly, quarterly touch for all of those individuals. Something that profiles new franchisees and how successful they've been. Talk about new product. Talk about, kind of where the industry's going. There's always something that you could be saying to these individuals that just keep you in their mind a little bit, right? And, that's the kind of nurturing that I would do. And in sending that, I would watch for people that engage, right? So people that read the email 3 times, people that click on the link and end up back on the franchise dev portal and read something else, right? They've kind of re-expressed interest at that point. You can apply a human to reaching out and driving the conversation further.
Boy, Stan, it's certainly a lot different of the old ways of franchise development where somebody inquired through an 800 phone number. We had a conversation. We sent them that 4-color brochure. We tapped our fingers on the desk for 3 or 4 days, kind of figured, okay, they got it. They had a chance to look at it, call them, have a conversation, ship them out that uniform franchise offering circular by snail mail, and maybe we spent the money for Airborne Express, and then, of course, tapped our fingers again. Oh, my God, this is a lot different and certainly more effective. Just tremendous information. For the record, Chris, the domain revenueondemand.com is already taken, but revenueon with a hyphen demand.com is not available. Is available. So I just love that, revenue on demand. That's great. I can't believe that you couldn't get a business owner to have their antennas go up like my favorite Martian when you say revenue on demand. What has the experience been? Have you used that terminology with a business owner?
Yeah, if you were to sit through one of Arke's amazing pitches, that would definitely be part of the conversation, right? It's that revenue on demand tied to your customer acquisition strategies, tied to your customer success and loyalty strategies. When we think about a customer, you've really got it is a holistic picture, right? There is a journey that an individual goes through with your brand, and as the brand, you need to architect that entire journey to maximize both their appreciation for your brand and the revenue that they drive to your business.
So, Chris,
I like that, the journey.
As we look forward now into this beginning of the new year and ahead, we talked a little bit earlier about, and in fact it's going to be a focal point of my webinar next week, the speed with which text messaging has overcome email as at least in the world of millennials, the choice for what to do with a smartphone. What do you see coming on the horizon? What do you see coming ahead, maybe not just in 2017, but the direction that things are moving in? Any futurist?
Yeah, there's the work version of that, and then there's the non-work version of that.
Give us both of them.
The non-associated, the work that we do version of that is, you look at, I think if you piece together a couple of things and you decide how long it's going to take those things to arrive, you get to an endpoint that's really interesting. We've got electric cars. They're becoming autonomous. At what point do you decide that your kids will probably never own a vehicle? If they're never going to own a vehicle because there's always an autonomous, self-driving, point-to-point vehicle in place, they never have to have insurance, you never need a parking lot, there's no more gas stations. City redevelopment becomes very interesting because you've got all of this additional land, insurance companies kind of go away. So, there's that version you can play way out into the future and go, I've got a 5-year-old son that I expect probably doesn't know how to drive.
I just never thought past Uber, but you've gone so much further.
When I think about the other side of that, right, and you get into what is the more work-related versions, I think the form factor of these devices we fit over our heads is going to continuously get smaller and smaller and smaller, just like our cell phones did.
Chips.
If I was to place a bet, we're probably a handful of years out from everybody inside of a quick service restaurant wearing a pair of glasses that have a heads-up display so that when Stan walks up to them, they can see a little picture of Stan, your name, what you like to buy, how eccentric you are when you yell at people, and just gives you like a dossier on the person standing in front of you, right? I mean, that would be one simple application of augmented reality inside of a storefront where I can improve the customer experience. I think one that might apply to the franchise side is imagine being at this expo you're about to go to and dropping a VR headset on that prospective,
franchisee,
brand owner, right, franchisee, and they can walk around, different store footprints. Right, I'm going to walk around this store footprint. I want to walk around that store footprint. I'm a broker, and I'm going to give you 5 different franchise concepts that you can explore through this augmented virtual reality headset. I think that there are things like that will start to appear in a variety of industries, right? If you haven't seen anything on VR, go look at what, Case Northwestern is doing from a medical perspective. I can put a VR headset on, and I have a full, human anatomy in front of me that I can peel and cut and see the muscle structure, and there's nobody there.
Wow.
There's the versions that let you explore the solar system. You got to think about how you're going to apply those. Imagine a tech needs to work on a refrigerator in the back of a facility or a dry cleaning unit. They're going to have an augmented reality headset on that walks them step by step. So you don't have to have the pro come in. You're going to put that on the, somebody that's already in your facility, and they're going to be able to resolve the problem.
Amazing.
Wow, amazing isn't even the word for it. Thinking about a franchisee or prospective franchisee being able to put on a virtual reality headset and experience the day in the life of a franchisee in a type of location. I loved your comment about, maybe your 5-year-old will never actually drive. Wow, there's all kinds of thoughts running through my head on this, without a doubt. And I think, obviously the sky's the limit, and we're not as far off as some people would believe that we are. I mean, really great technology. I could ask so many questions and take us to, 2 hours from now. So, Stan, do you have anything else you want to talk about as we wrap this up? Because I think anything else that I would add right now might turn out to be a little bit long-winded.
No, I'm good. I mean, I'm sitting here with my George Jetson mentality right now. I'm just thinking about, I'm pondering some of the things that Chris just shared. But the one thing that I think we should share with our audience before we check out, Paul, is the opportunity for Chris to tell anyone tuned in today that might want more of the appetite that you've just whet for so many of our audiences. How can people find you? How can people get in touch? And what's the best vehicle for doing that? And where might you be in coming weeks or Any expos or shows?
Well, everybody else is self-promoting, so I'll go for
Please.
it. I would, if you're in and around the southeast, the Atlanta area, towards the end of March, we're going to be hosting in Buckhead a customer experience summit. It's one day. We bring in a bunch of speakers, a couple of keynotes from different large consumer brands, just talking about how they think about innovation, how they think about customer experience and the data. I'd welcome you to reach out to me if you'd like an invitation to that. I can be found on LinkedIn. There's not a lot of Chris Spearses out there. You can feel free to reach out to me over email if there's anything you'd like to discuss. It's just Chris@ArkeSystems with an S on the end.com. And then there's just always Arke.com if you can't remember all of that and you want to wander out and hit our contact us form, and that's ARKE.com.
I've got to tell you, Paul, in just the moments that are left, that Chris kind of touched on the LinkedIn story at the beginning of the podcast, but he reached out to me about 5 years ago, once, twice, maybe 3, 4 times before I even responded at all. When I get hit on LinkedIn and see somebody who doesn't have any franchising to speak of in their profile, I usually ignore them. Well, Chris is no one to be ignored. So after a few times, I responded and asked him, what is it you want to get together about? I get a lot of insurance people and people who want to sell me something or want to get in touch with somebody who's got thousands of people in his LinkedIn profile. And I basically said, why don't you tell me what you want to talk about, and maybe then we can get together. And he wrote back and said, hey, look, I am the co-founder of a technology company that the Atlanta Business Chronicle has called one of the best places to work in Atlanta, one of the fastest growing companies in Atlanta, and my partner and I are embarking on a venture that will include franchising in a division of our organization. I was simply looking for somebody that might want to lead that business, and your name bubbled up a couple of times. But if you're too busy, I understand. And sorry I bothered you. We'll talk about digital marketing. That was digital marketing extraordinaire because I was on his phone within 30 seconds. That was 5 years ago, Paul.
I would imagine so.
And here we are today.
So. Well,
having fun ever since.
Absolutely.
That's a tremendous story. Well, Chris, I certainly look forward to meeting you in person. I could sit here for hours and listen to you because just has my mind racing. I know just from the simplistic standpoint, I'm enamored with, social and digital technology, and obviously all the things you're talking about take it to a far greater level. But I know I always love watching the social media revolution videos by Eric Qualman and some of the other things out there, and it just makes it just stops you in your tracks and say, what is next? So to think about all the things that you just spoke about going into a restaurant and they know so much about you or any place. And I know there's some retail stores that have the eye in the sky or the eye in the mannequins that, see people coming in and all of a sudden you get a text message and it's just remarkable stuff. And kudos to you and congratulations to you and your team for tremendous success and for continued success in the future. I wish you the best. Thank you for being a guest today.
Thank you for having me. It's been an enjoyable show.
Thanks so much, Chris, and thank you, Paul.
Thank you too, Stan. Great people you work with, and thank you for introducing them to Franchise Today. And so I guess I will see you not too long from now, as I'm going north to Dallas and you're going west to Dallas. Probably have the same length of time traveling, although yours will be in the air and mine will be on 4 wheels.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you this evening, Paul, and safe travels to you.
Okay. Next week, of course, we'll be back live with another show. Until then, my name is Paul Segreto, wishing the best, the very best in this great, great thing we call franchising, and Franchise Today is out.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. So at American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.